and welcome all to another episode of Close Inkounters. I am sat here today with Lobster Robin, and we are sat in front of his prize-winning piece at Walls Apart. But before we get into that, let's ask the most important question. So today we went for a bit of food, and I just want to know, what are your thoughts on the Yorkshire pudding?
I actually kind of loved it.
Pudding you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, exactly. Different kind of pudding, but I dig it.
Yeah. So we'll start getting into the juicy stuff. So your artwork has very strong elements, and I just want to know, what has inspired your work the most?
It's hard to say. I think my whole life it's been definitely animation movies.
Yeah.
Like I've been watching Disney stuff since I was 2 years old, basically. Grew up with a lot of animation stuff, and then throughout my school career, I figured out I could study animation and stuff. So I come from a background of like a lot of character design, heavy outlined characters and stuff. And over the years, that took a more like artistic direction, but it's still rooted in like illustration, animation stuff.
Yeah, it's very nice. I mean, as viewers can see, it's a very strong, very bold style. I really like the use of heavy, thick lines. I've said before, as you might have seen on Created by Imri, I do love very bold outlines. So moving on. So talking about issue 1, what was it that made you want to be a part of issue 1?
Well, actually, Rob or Doodles and Drips, he asked me if I wanted to be a part of it, and I've been following his work for quite a long while, and being asked by artists that you look up to is always an instant yes for me. Yeah, and I didn't really think about it for like 5 seconds. Instantly I was like, I'm there.
Just no hesitations, dive
part of it. And then throughout you guys setting this whole place up, I saw the stories and stuff, so that got me more into it, but I was ready from the go.
So I know we were talking a lot about issue 1, we were talking about previous jobs that we'd had in the arts and stuff, and we were talking about certain limitations on artwork and things like that with these jobs. And I just want to know, because it relates to me a lot as being a tattooist, how important is it to have creative freedom when producing your own artwork?
Probably the most important, I would say, because as I told you, I come from a background of animation. I studied it, and I kind of had this goal of being a character designer for like the likes of Pixar or something like that. I set high goals, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to make characters for cool movies, and kind of got into that career and looked for ways to work myself up within that world, because a lot of people want to do that. And it's not really easy, but I kind of got some places, and I got to do cool jobs where I was even able to do like monster kind of stuff. But after a while it would still end up feeling like a job, because once you start a project, it has to have a certain style, it needs to have a certain look, and you can't really deviate halfway through a project.
Exactly, like certain ideas can't be incorporated, there's certain limitations, and somewhat of a smaller ceiling than you might have thought originally.
Yeah, exactly. And I got into it for like 5 years and slowly discovered that it wasn't making me happy at all. And I was like, but I'm making money with drawing, and that's what I wanted to do. But discovered like this is the thing I'm like most passionate about in life. And it was turning into a job for the benefit of like other people.
Exactly, and you kind of have a feeling like it's almost diluting your work.
Yeah, exactly.
You want it to be strong, have a lot of flavour and stuff.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make cool stuff for no other sake than this is cool stuff. It didn't need to be for like a movie or for a commercial or whatever, just for the sake of it existing. So after a while I got sick of doing those jobs, completely quit doing that, and got a warehouse job and only focused on whatever I wanted to make.
Yeah,
it's the start of the Lobster journey.
Yeah. It's a very, very valiant thing. It's great to hear. So one thing I want to know, we're all very serious about community here at Ink, and we all want to know, how has your experience been here at issue 1?
Amazing, yeah, really great. We kind of felt like, as Jolene said, like walking into a family, being welcome immediately, and especially the fact that you're all creative in some form or another, or are artists in some way or another. You really feel that, because you'll meet a lot of people organizing festivals or organizing stuff like this, and it'll often be really good, but sometimes you notice that the organizers are a little bit out of touch with actual artistic beings, because we're a weird bunch.
That's it, like I say, we all have different needs, and I guess as being artists, we can sort of breach that gap.
Exactly, there's like this instant understanding, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
You can really tell by the way you guys got this started.
That's much appreciated. We love to hear that kind of thing. It really warms our hearts here at Ink. So I just want to segue into Walls Apart, seeing as we are sat in front of your amazing work. Again, really strong elements, I love it. So seeing as it was your first battle, how did you find battling the Titan that is Matthias Ink?
Yeah, it was cool. Like I wasn't too insecure about what I had to make because I'm quite comfortable with what I do, but I'm not that much of like a competition animal, and Matthias Ink makes dope ass stuff, so
Yeah, he's
yeah,
very top man.
I was definitely a little nervous, but yeah, winning was really cool. It's cool to have like completely random people picking my work over his, so yeah.
And that's the thing, you know,
that happened.
yeah, giving yourself a challenge and stepping up to things, maybe stepping out of your comfort zone a little, and, you know, it really sort of puts a pressure on, and you know, you create some fantastic things doing things like that.
Exactly, because usually I'm a really colorful person. I use a lot of colors, but being limited by an hour, that would have taken too long, especially when I work with paint, it needs to dry for me to layer it, so I just went with the watery black and black outlines, and you can get a lot of, still like a lot of body into it without it costing like 10 layers or like 3 hours for paint to dry.
Still able to, you know, reach the depth and stuff like that, you know, where Godzilla taking the big foreground with the big bold lines, and then behind you the little cityscape, and it's just that light grey, so it's almost like it's off in the distance.
You get like this
storytelling to it.
Water, black paint, that's all you need basically.
It's great, yeah. You know.
Limitation is definitely good for creativity.
Exactly, yeah, and that's what we like to see.
Yeah.
So I had my hair done at issue 1, and you did give us some compliments. What kind of hairstyle would you like to see next time?
Next time, well, that's a good question. A lot of guys here were wearing dreads, like maybe that's something you could whip up next time. I did like the braids a lot though, that's gangsters.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I'd definitely get confused and be like Rob a lot if I had dreads.
Probably, maybe just like more braids.
Or maybe if I just did one big dread.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah,
No, you had like the 2 braids that was gangster as hell, but like maybe next time cornrows, that could
cornrows, okay, that was a suggestion. I'll definitely take that on board. So next time you might be seeing some cornrows at the next exhibition. So we know it won't be being tall, but what would your superpower be?
I have to think about that. Usually I go for the classic like flying, because that just looks sick. I think flying would be cool. It would be easy to paint big walls as well.
That would, yeah, I didn't think of that one. That would be really handy. Yeah. You could literally fly through a city, tag every building in a matter of seconds, and then the whole world knows about Lobster.
Good for the environment.
Yeah. I know we hyped up the Sunday roast dinner. We did go for one today. Is there any other sort of like UK delicacies or, you know, foods that you might want to try that you've not got to?
Yeah, I've got to, but like I love good fish and chips. I will always take that. And I didn't get to taste the steak and ale pie, so I might have to try that next time.
Yeah, so maybe we'll put off feelers out there, and maybe any local businesses that rate that they've got the best steak and ale pie, let us know. Lobster Rock wants to try it. So another thing, a question I like to say, so going back to like the bold lines and stuff like that, so when it comes to your artwork, when you're working in a physical medium, are you more about brushes or markers?
Definitely brushes. Although I come from markers, like if I draw on paper, it'll be markers, because in my head a marker on a paper is kind of the same instantaneous way of drawing than a brush on a canvas or on a wall.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But as soon as it's like a big line, if I can make like fat lines with either like a marker or a brush, but it needs to be about like strong, thick, confident lines, and preferably I'll take a brush for that.
Yeah, I feel like with a brush, there's more flexibility with the way you can like manipulate the lines.
Yeah, you can hide a lot of stuff, because if you go close up to this, like every single line is just like quick sketch-like movements, but if you get like confident enough in the way you use a brush, or feel like there to put down a big black line instead of like carefully sketching it out, there's this spontaneity to that you can't fake or something like that.
Yeah, and you get some nice expressive motion out of it, you know, and when you have like expressive marks like that, you get a nice emotion to things. Like you're saying about, you know, being fascinated in animation and working in that kind of industry, you know a lot about like smears and stuff like that, and how that adds movement to a piece and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And how you can have a static thing and make it look like, you know, something's going on.
That's usually my goal. I want stuff to move, and it's funny because I used to do animation and use a lot of pens and markers, But then as I got into walls, it just asked for a bigger way to put down lines, so brushes were an obvious option, and they actually shaped my style a lot.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear,
the curves and the movements I'll put in my pieces directly come from like the way brushes make strokes when you move them fast enough.
Yeah, and I love to hear the fact of you know, when you're working on like a bigger medium stuff, that like certain things demand like extra techniques and you know the way you've got to adapt and stuff, and again, you know, it helps develop your style. It helps develop yourself as an artist, and you know, trying to find the gaps between how do I do this and how do I make that and how do I
exactly
get the end result.
Yeah, it just comes in your path when you need it. Like the first couple of walls I did with spray paint, because that's what I was used to seeing. Like everyone uses spray, so I'll use that as well. But after a while, I just figured I couldn't really get out of it what I had in mind. And the first time I just took this old paintbrush that was like raffled and everything.
Yeah.
And the lines I created was like instantaneously from like, that's what I'm missing. That's the sort of expressiveness that I can't get out of a can. Others can, but maybe for me it was always brushes.
Yeah, and you find out what works for you, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, for a while, I have a thing where I don't like shading a lot, but I tend to use like dry chisel tip markers.
Yeah.
So, you know, dry ones, and I get some nice light shades out of that, and I'll later help develop it. So it's interesting
Something
to hear
like
from
that. Because it's the same with this piece, it's only like black paint and then some water to like dilute it or like have some shading going on, but still everything needs to be like very direct.
That's it, yeah. And still able to create the depth, still be able to achieve the end result,
And small details are not that important.
Thank you, Lobster Robin, for joining us. Thank you for being here for issue 1 and Balls Apart. Definitely have you again. So we would just like to know who you'd like to see at the next Close Encounters.